Yellow Jackets is without a doubt, at least when it comes to television, the sleeper hit of 2022. I really can't remember there being any kind of buzz for this show, pun intended. No one was talking about it. I didn't see any hype around it. I didn't see anything really until it came out. And then it just kind of grew steam, and then it became one of the big shows of 2022. It got amazing reviews. It won a bunch of awards. There's all kinds of theory channels up on YouTube now. And the season 2 was one of the most highly anticipated seasons of 2023. And I got to say, I watched it back in when it first came out in 2022. I just had my appendix out and I was in no condition to really go anywhere. So I had all the time in the world to sit down and watch the show. And I wound up watching the show twice. It is an extremely well made show. I think whether you like it or not, you have to admit the writing's really good. I don't know if I've ever seen something that gatekeeps information as well as this show does. For a show that takes place half in the past and half in the present, they are very, very good about not providing spoilers to what happened in the past because we don't even know really who survived. The show is extremely careful with letting you know who survives in the past. We have no idea how they got out of there. We have very little idea of what actually wound up happening and how it continues to impact the present. Likewise, until at least season 2, it's extremely ambiguous as to whether or not the supernatural exists in this show, or if it's the general surrealism of the environment they find themselves in. Maybe you have some unreliable narrator tropes, and several of the characters may very well be schizophrenic, have multiple personality disorder, or have some other messed up things regarding them that's giving them a warped perception of reality. So that being said, what is Yellow Jackets? So the Yellow Jackets are a girls' soccer team that won the state cup, I believe, in New Jersey, and they're flying to, I think it was supposed to be Oregon or Washington for the Nationals. And on the way there, they get blown off course or something else happens, and their plane goes way into northern Canada, and they crash land there, and the coach gets killed, Coach Martinez, as well as the pilots. The only adult who's left is Coach Ben, who is a pathetic person in general, exceedingly weak, and he gets badly injured and they have to cut off his leg. So he's kind of a non-entity. So the girls are kind of left having to organize themselves into a group and trying to survive. They find the cabin of a man who we just know as the Hunter at the moment, who they find his skeleton sitting in a chair in a cabin. You also have a gun there with a whole bunch of ammunition they were able to find, but no food. They also find the symbol of a strange, what eventually becomes an occultic symbol, but seems to refer to some sort of ancient forest deity, although the actual origins of the symbol have not been explained in any way yet. And so in the past, things just continue to get kind of weirder and weirder. This show is very careful as to whether or not showing the supernatural existing. I think in season 2, it's a lot more clear that it probably does. But we have unreliable narrator tropes. We have several of the characters who are obviously have severe mental issues. There's the general isolation and breaking down of social conventions in the past, which all could be fueling. There's also PTSD, all kinds of just stuff that could be giving us unreliable narration as to what's going on. So in the past, we begin to see like the relationships between the characters break down. In particular, I think the jumping off point for season 1 is my favorite character, Laura Lee, who was an evangelical Christian, was kind of the one who kept the team together. Like, she would say grace before meals. She would provide spiritual advice to the various characters. She even baptizes one character at a point where they think she might have a demonic possession. However, she dies relatively early in season 1, which I personally view as God taking her home. That she's like the last decent person, and God doesn't want her to become corrupted and suffer from the horrific stuff that's about to happen. So I think I kind of view her death as being a good thing. But just throughout the season, tensions kind of flare. Coach Ben loses what authority he has left. Part of the thing in the past is Misty destroys the black box, so there's no way of getting rescued. We still have no idea how they got out of the wilderness, but there's no rescue coming, and they're left having to face a long Canadian winter with starvation coming in, as they have very limited access to food. Meanwhile, in the present, it kind of starts off a bit like Watchmen, where it looks like someone's out to get the remaining members of the team through blackmail and extortion. We see that most of the characters are kind of losers now in the present day. Of our four main characters, Shauna's become a housewife, which she hates. Natalie's a drug addict. Taisha's, as the show puts it, is the queer Kamala, who's becoming a state senator in New Jersey. And Misty is a citizen detective, nursing home worker, and probably a serial killer, although that hasn't been exactly confirmed. And they start to kind of try to investigate the whole thing involving who's blackmailing the team. Although I won't get into detail about it, but it's not exactly who you think. We also have Travis, one of the only male characters who survives in the past, seemingly kill himself in the first couple of episodes. And as time goes on, things just get weirder and weirder. There's conspiracies, there's kind of stuff going on behind the scenes. We find out that at the last episode that Lottie survived, and she started some kind of cult that worships the forest king or some sort of forest demon that's represented by the symbol. And the end of season 1 is them kidnapping Natalie. Also, Taisha wins the Senate election, and we find a altar to the forest demon in her basement alongside the sacrificed body of her dog. So that leads us to season 2, and the question here is, does season 2 hold up to season 1? We had so much just stuff that was left unanswered in season 1. They're saying they want to do this show for like 3 to 5 seasons. I don't know how they're going to have enough content for it. But was season 2, now that we're on episode 3, a disappointment? No, I think it's very much in line with the quality of season 1. I don't really notice a noticeable difference. I think, honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that some new characters showed up and there was a bit of a time jump, you could pretty much just take this and put it on the end of season 1 and it would have made sense. There's no discernible drop in quality. We've got a couple new characters. Lottie in the present, I'm not really sure how I feel about. And we have Elijah Wood show up as another mysterious figure. Season 2 is definitely a lot darker than the first, and given how season 1 went, that's saying a lot. Season 1 is interesting because the most disturbing episode was the first one, and then it got kind of less disturbing. In season 2, it really picks up quick. In the second episode, we see our first case of cannibalism, and it's really fucked up. We see people in the past just basically going completely schizophrenic, and it's awesome. Meanwhile, in the present, we have Lottie's cult. We have Shauna investigating a conspiracy. We have more stuff going on that are suggesting that there's some sort of meta plot happening beyond the blackmail, beyond Travis committing suicide, that the forest demon is coming back in a big way, and that his presence is affecting the members of the team who are still around. I think one of the main theme of the show is the intro song is No Return. And on one level, season 2 kind of sucks because they said no return, but the show returned for season 2. But obviously the songs are reference to the fact that their souls and their humanity were kind of left out in the wilderness. And they're kind of shadows of who they once were. And they're incomplete people with the holes in them being filled with ambition or all kinds of other questionable motives. Definitely most of them look much, much worse in the present than they do in the past through drug usage or stress or not taking care of themselves. As kind of a side note, I do find it funny that Misty is played by Christina Ricci in the present. And Christina Ricci, although she's getting a bit older, is still a very attractive woman. And they try to make her look ugly by giving her like big glasses and frizzy hair and making her dress kind of trashy. But she's still obviously a lot more attractive than her past actor. And she's supposed to kind of be the ugly duckling of the group. So it is kind of funny that she's like the only attractive one in the present, where she's supposed to not be. It doesn't really matter because Christina Ricci just does a really good job as her. And she's probably my favorite character because she's just so insane, and just such a sociopath, but in a very affable way where she thinks that she's people's friend and stuff like that. But so far, we've had a couple questions answered. We found out, like, for instance, that Taisha appears to have a multiple personality disorder, or she's at least partially possessed by the forest demon, or something else. We don't exactly know, but it doesn't seem like she's consciously worshiping the demon in order to gain political power. It seems like there's kind of something else going on, or she's just completely compartmentalized her mind. Once again, we have Elijah Wood show up as a very mysterious character. Who knows? He might even be Javi, Travis's little brother, who mysteriously disappeared in the past, and we have no idea if he's even still alive. It's still very much, I think, up in the air whether or not Lottie is the show's big bad, if she's behind all the weird stuff that happened, or if she is just a puppet for the forest demon as much as anyone else is, and she just thinks that she's in control of herself. I don't really know, to be honest. But I guess to kind of finish off this video, I wanted to talk because a lot of people in these circles don't like this show, or don't want to give it a chance because it's widely regarded, for God knows what reason, as being a feminist TV show. I guess because most of the main characters are female. But it's like, I don't really get how it's a feminist show. All the female characters are completely nuts. And they're nuts in like a very feminine, womanly way. Like in the past, everyone's like a psycho. They're horrible to each other. They go crazy and they try to like sacrifice Travis to the forest demon. They eat people. In the present, they're all like have borderline personality disorder or lead cults or like sociopathic politicians or serial killers, but all in a very like womanly kind of what would be the term? Uh Neurotic way. They're all crazy in like a very neurotic feminine way. So like I guess you could say it's feminist from the standpoint that it's like female characters, but all the female characters are completely fucked. And a lot of them almost feel like they could be caricatures in some like incel thing that's trying to portray women as being evil. So I think once again there's a lot of forced diversity, there's a lot of like LGBTQ stuff, and there's a lot of like sort of feminism stuff, but none of it's really portrayed as being good. Most of it's portrayed as either being neutral, or the people who take part in it are just complete shitheads and are completely unlikable, horrible, mentally deranged people. So I don't really get the whole like girl power thing. Maybe there's a little bit of girl power, but it's like, okay, so girl power is a thing, but it's fucked, is kind of how I would describe it. So I think if you're like, don't want to watch the show because it's like feminism or forced diversity or something, I wouldn't let that really limit you, because I don't really think it's that overtly ideological. At least it doesn't come across that way. Maybe they intended it to be that way, but just as like a normal person watching it, I do not get that impression. I think if you're looking for it to be that way, then it is. You probably also just have to be a very amoral person to start with and think all their like sociopathic behavior is just completely normal and acceptable. If you have a fairly normal moral compass, you won't look up to any of these people. You won't think they're heroic or whatever. But those are my thoughts on the TV show. I think it's really good. I